I would like us to begin, please. Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Peggy LaPointe. I am going to be the moderator for tonight. I represent the League of Women Voters of Larimer County. The League is a national nonpartisan organization. Our nonpartisan policy means that we do not endorse or support any candidate or political party. We do take positions on a wide range of issues, but only after careful study and following the consensus of our members. And despite our name, we are not for women only. Last month, the League of Women Voters celebrated our 100th anniversary. We were instituted a century ago to help citizens register to vote and to be educated and engaged voters. In that spirit, we have created a website called Vote 411. The site provides information on voting procedures, and the Voter's Guide contains unedited answers to questions we have posed to all candidates for offices at the local, state, and national level. Out in the lobby will be information on how to use Vote 411 and information about the League of Women Voters. The town of Timnath will stream tonight's forum live on Facebook, and viewers can post questions. A video will be available on the Timnath Town website tomorrow. And we thank the town of Timnath and all its wonderful staff for making this forum possible. Ballots for this election will be mailed to voters starting on March 16th. Ballots can be mailed back or dropped off at the Timnath Town Center. They must be received in the clerk's office by April 7th at 7 p.m. Tonight's forum will have two 1 hour and 15-minute segments with a 10-minute intermission. The first segment will address candidates for mayor. The second segment, beginning at 7:25, will feature candidates for town council. After the town council forum, we will have 30 minutes in the lobby to talk with candidates and pick up their literature. As you came in, you were asked to write questions for the candidates. Please print carefully so that we don't misunderstand you. And the League ushers have been picking up those questions for you. And we will screen the questions to keep duplication down, but we won't rewrite or edit them. We strongly urge the audience to be courteous and refrain from applauding or demonstrating support or non-support for candidate statements. Candidates will have 90 seconds to introduce themselves. They will have 1 minute to answer each question put to them and 1 minute to present closing statements. Our timers will warn the candidates when they have 15 seconds remaining and indicate when their time is up. We will begin by asking candidates to state why they are running for office and what skills and experience they bring to the position. We will begin with Mrs. Grossman-Bilal. Please begin.
Okay. I am passionate about our community and have had the honor to serve as your mayor for the past 9 years. I made commitments to you and we've kept them. We have accomplished much and there's more to do. I want to keep Timnath moving forward in a positive, strategic way to be responsive to you, transparent, proactive, strategically planned, and most importantly, financially responsible way. I want to continue to make Timnath the place that we all call so special home. And I want to not do that just for 2020, but I want to create a vision for 2040 and beyond. I led the efforts that brought us Costco. I led the efforts or collaborated regionally to widen harmony, to expedite I-25 expansion, to create Poudre River Trail, to increase mental health services, to bring Timnath Community Park and Old Town Sewer. All of those things while continuing to hold developers to a very high standard of quality. And most importantly, while we have a strong, healthy budget with reserves that can actually maintain during a downturn in the economy without raising taxes. In addition to mayor, I have 30 years of successful business leadership and a strong underlying belief in business aspects, regional impacts, and financial considerations to make solid strategic decisions for the benefit of Timnath. Only person proven with a track record. Thank you. I ask for your vote.
Thank you so much. Mr. Connor Duffy. Now you may
Ready?
begin, Mr. Duffy.
Thank you very much. My name is Connor Duffy, and I'm running for mayor. The reason why I'm running for mayor is because moving here 4 years ago with my family was a dream. We had moved up from Venezuela, where we were working in the energy industry, and getting here was a breath of fresh air. Since then, things haven't turned out so great. We've seen predatory metro districts raise our taxes. We've seen developers want to rezone certain areas of our town. And we've seen this town council not finalize our oil and gas regulations. Ladies and gentlemen, a vote for me will do those three things. We will rein in the metro districts. They will have to live by the service plans that they have submitted, and this town council will have oversight authority. Number two, I am a hard no on rezoning Timnath Ranch Metro District right across the street from Beth Keys School. The reason for that is we already are at capacity. Number three, if we do not finalize our oil and gas regulations, update them and finalize them, once oil prices go up, we will have drill rigs in our town in everybody's backyard. This evening, hopefully, you will hear us explain these positions in more depth. I look forward to explaining why I feel this way, and I hopefully will earn your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sukup. Oh, excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Duffy. Now we will hear from Mark Sukup.
I'm going to give you a little test. It's a true-false test, and it's self-graded, so everybody gets an A+. True or false? I'm invested in the town of Timnath, both financially and through my relationships. 2, the town of Timnath should have a first-rate police department and fire department. 3, the town of Timnath should have 24/7 police coverage. 4, the top priority of the town of Timnath should be controlling our traffic issues. 5, Timnath could do a better job of snow removal, both for the protection of our citizens and also for the safety of our children. 6, the town, true or false, the town should have no closed-door meetings. It should be transparent. 7, the budget should reflect the will of the people as expressed in the 2018 survey, not the will of the mayor. 7, at 20 times the debt of any of the communities around, we need to rein in and stop incurring our debt. And lastly, true or false, Timnath should have developed parks and trails in the town.
Thank you, Mr. Sukup.
If you agreed with all those, I'm your choice for mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sukup. We will now go to the questions, and candidates will have 1 minute to answer, and we will begin with Mr. Duffy. The first question will be, what are Timnath's chief infrastructure needs, and how will those needs be met?
Thank you for the question. First and foremost, our infrastructure needs obviously are the overpass at Harmony Road. We can work better with CDOT to get that done. However, we need to work better regionally. Regrettably, Timnath has gotten a reputation of not playing well in the sandbox. When we talk about infrastructure, we need to rely heavily on the county, which we have not done. The best example of this is Buchanan Liberty Bridge right off of County Road 5, right? We've seen that project approved, but continue to slip down on the order of priority in the county and with CDOT. Whereas bridges in Wellington, because Wellington plays well in the sandbox, they move up. They have their infrastructure done first. We need to do a much better job, and I will do a much better job working with our county commissioners and our state officials to ensure that we get the tax dollars here to Timnath that we need to improve the roads that we all use, whether they're in town or just on the outside of town. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go next to Mr. Sukup.
I think anybody who's driven Harmony knows the obvious answer that our infrastructure for our roads is sorely lacking. That is in a large part because we haven't played well with the other communities. There's 20,000 cars that go through Harmony each day. 2,000 of those are Timnath residents. 18,000 of those are coming from Severance and Windsor. We need to work with those towns to help them end up with thoroughfares that will get to I-25 in a different route than what is currently being used down Harmony.
Thank you. We'll next go to Mrs. Grossman-Bilal.
We've already completed many of the projects that were infrastructure needs, such as the Harmony Road widening, actually leading the way for our community surrounding us. I'm actually endorsed by County Commissioner Tom Donnelly because of my regional collaboration, as well as Mayor Wade Troxel, as well as Mayor Christy Melendez and others. And the reason for that is because we do work tirelessly together to make sure that our infrastructure needs that impact the entire region, when Timnath is in the nucleus, is making sure that Timnath's voice is also represented. For example, the Metropolitan Planning Organization that I've been a part of for many years, we work together to create expediting the I-25 expansion. And without that collaboration, we would not have been able to bring I-25 expansion to us as quickly as we do. So we work strongly with the master planning for the entire region and making sure that we've identified those infrastructure needs and planned for them.
Thank you. For this question, we will begin with Mr. Sukup. Why is it important to have more affordable housing in Timnath?
Timnath needs to have attainable housing. At this point, 95% of the homes that are being built, or 95% of the citizens, can afford a home in Timnath as attainable home. Affordable housing is subsidized. Timnath does not have the capacity to subsidize affordable housing. They can help with grants and other items. Now, by focusing in on the attainable housing and making sure it's important, because I want my kids to be able to live in the same area as I have. If we sit there and become a boulder and make it so all the homes are $1 million plus, we will not be able to allow our kids to buy their starter homes and our retirees to stay here, and that's why it's important.
Thank you. We'll go next to Mrs. Grossman-Bilal.
I do believe affordable housing is important, and the reason for that is simply because I want those folks to graduate from CSU to get here, and then when they're ready to retire, to be able to afford to stay and live here as well. We've actually worked hard to make sure that we have some affordable housing in the use of product types, looking at multifamily and attached and paired product, so that we can bring in a lower priced product. The other thing that we do is we do work with metro districts. That is one benefit that they have. For example, a house that is priced at $400,000 in Timnath Ranch would be $600,000 in Harmony, simply because of the land costs, and it would be unaffordable to most because they use the land costs rather than a metro district to be able to support that. We're always looking for innovative ways, whether that could be through subsidy or rather just incentivizing the developer or the builder to create some affordable housing options.
Thank you. Mr. Duffy.
affordable housing isn't the problem in Timnath. We do have many different types of projects coming online. The problem is we have too many projects coming online. If we can have affordable housing at $350,000, what we're going to do is we're going to outstrip the capacity of our school system. All right? Right now, our school system is pretty much full. If we put on 1,000 more units of affordable housing, what's going to happen is we're going to have massive overcrowding, and the schools are going to start to lose their rankings. Whether it's affordable housing or a nice big mansion in Harmony Club, if our school rankings go down, so will your property value. So we need to stop looking at all these different housing options and how to get people in here more affordably and start being a little more cognizant about the pace of our growth.
Thank you. For this round of questions, we'll reverse our order and begin with Mr. Sukup. As mayor, how will you ensure transparency for all matters brought to the city council? And I think this person probably meant town council.
Great. We need, the last 2 years, there's been 19 private meetings that were held with council. We will not have private meetings while I'm mayor. We will make it transparent. It's amazing to me as I went to the various citizens how little they knew about many items that are going on in the city. And the reason they don't is because those items are not being expressed and told to them so that they be aware of it. As mayor, I will refuse to have private discussions that go on with the developers and with the various builders. We will make them open so that everybody can participate and understand what's going on.
Thank you. Mrs. Grossman-Balil?
As far as the transparency piece, I am unaware of 19 meetings. I can assure you we follow all of the state sunshine laws, and we actually are working hard to continue to create ways to make ourselves even more transparent and more open communication. All of our information for our meetings is available on the website or open to the public process, with the exception of executive sessions for the purpose of legal negotiations and or personnel issues. In addition to that, there are times when it is appropriate to have a closed meeting in such cases as negotiation. I'll give you the example of Costco. If we had said all of those meetings are going to be open prior to their decision to being here, they would not be here today. So sometimes it is necessary to have those decisions or those meetings in private while you're discussing confidential issues.
Thank you. Mr. Duffy?
I do see the need at certain times, especially with legal matters, to have closed meetings. That's not irregular among many town councils or city councils, even at the county level as well. Pertaining to transparency and openness, I think that there's a long, long road to travel on community outreach and communicating to all of our constituents what's actually happening. I find it quite humorous how many town meetings we've had since we've decided to launch an election this time, because I haven't heard anything. I haven't seen states of the towns and come over and meet and greets for quite some time. And then once we have an election, and this isn't only us, this happens a lot. I think that what ends up happening is there's an election and people want everybody to pay attention. I think that the mayor should have to have quarterly meetings and meet the constituents year-round.
Thank you. For our next round of questions, we will begin with Mr. Duffy. What role does the town have in metro districts, and do you view them as necessary?
Metro districts are a detriment to our community. We've heard them described as, oh, you can use the amenities now and pay for them later. It's just not true. It's just not true. I am the only one in this race who actually lives in a metro district. And we've seen our taxes go up 33%. Our mill levy is at the cap, and there are things that the town council can do about this. We can have better oversight per the service plans. Some of our metro districts haven't even filed their service plans with the Department of Labor Affairs in Denver, all right? We as the town have a much more important role than just rubber stamping any developer who wants to come into town. The metro districts, I could talk about this till I'm blue in the face, the metro districts need to be reined in.
Thank you. We'll go next to Mr. Sukup.
The biggest issue with metro districts is communication. The individuals buying a home need to understand what they are going to be paying for, what's the mill levy, and how much is it going to cost them. They need to understand whether they can be on the board of the metro district or not. They need to understand how much it's going to cost them over the life of their home to be part of a metro district. They need to understand the amenities of a metro district to determine if it's worth it to them to buy a home in that metro district. They need to understand that they have control of the debt that is placed in a metro district to pay off through their tax dollars. It's incredibly important that the individuals understand that. There are some very bad metro districts, and there's some that work reasonably. We need to be assured, as a town, we need to supervise those so that we have metro districts that work.
Thank you. Mrs. Grossman-Belisle.
When I began in 2011, we had multiple service plans that were inequitable, lacked disclosure, didn't have mill cap levies. We worked tirelessly again to make sure that we brought all those into conformance with a service plan that made sense, that had mill levy caps on them and term limits on them. And then we also brought into form service improvement agreements so that we also knew what those dollars would be spent for and what those amenities would be within inside each development. Now there's a predictability to what that is. I agree with Mr. Sukup that we do need to help with better disclosure. In the 2018 survey, it was identified there's confusion with metro districts, and so we created opportunities for educational awareness, FAQs, and trying to work together with those metro districts to create a better understanding of what that is. The increase is because the value of your home is also going up.
Thank you. For our next question, we will begin with Mrs. Grossman-Belisle. What are your views of the Community Rec Center as it was a high priority in the last resident survey?
I absolutely believe that Timnath deserves and should have a rec center. I also believe that we have an obligation to put our needs prior to our wants, and a rec center will follow in time once we have the rooftops to be able to financially support a rec center. Right now, we do have to focus on our needs, such as our traffic infrastructure, all of that, to be prepared for our managed growth. And over time, then we will be able to turn to our wants, and our wants being something like a recreation center, because a recreation center is a costly thing. So in 2006, I think, when Timnath Ranch, we identified that there was a rec center location in Timnath Ranch, and we would do a private-public partnership to be able to bring that to the community. That's still a vision, and that's still a shared vision. And so a private-public partnership will probably be the most effective way to bring that want to us when the time is right.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sukup.
It's very key that the town council followed the wishes of the residents. We have a 2018 survey that was taken. Number 1, police station. Number 2, rec center. Number 3, town center. What did the mayor and the town council do? They gave you this building first, which was last on the survey. As your mayor, I will do what the survey. We will have a survey in 2020. You will make the decisions on what you feel you wish to have us build, what you feel you wish to pay for, and based on that, that's what we'll do. It will not be what I want. It's listening to the residents, listening to what you want, and getting it accomplished. If you want the rec center and realize the cost of it, that is exactly what this town should do, not make a decision on what I think is best for you. I'm not going to be a Spengali.
Thank you very much. Mr. Duffy.
I think we need to see what a new survey terms up. The reason for that is, as of right now, we just can't afford it. You know, we're looking at a maybe close to a $12 million police department, and that's priority number one. I think going forward, if we want to see a rec center, we just got to go back out to the constituents and ask them and see if that's a priority for them.
Thank you. Our next question will begin with Mrs. Grossman-Belio. Are we outspending our tax revenue? Are projections based on growth or no growth?
I believe this is referring to our expenditures and our debt, correct? Is that, can you just repeat that first part of the
Yes.
question?
Are we outspending our tax revenue?
Okay, thank you. The answer is no. We actually will have all of our TDA or Timnath Development Authority debt paid off in 2029. And without that debt, incurring that debt, we would not have been able to create Walmart or Costco, which will create over $8 million annually today in sales tax revenue that we would not have otherwise. We will pay off all of that debt while also adding $80 million in projects to the town of Timnath and serving our infrastructure needs. We have a net benefit per resident of over $1,400 per resident of revenue. Everyone else has only debt, not the revenue opportunity.
Thank you. Mr. Duffy?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question for me, please?
Yes. Are we outspending our tax revenue? Are projections based on growth or no growth?
As of right now, as I understand it from our financial statements, the TDA will be paid off, and that depends on a lot of things on the projections. But I'm pretty much in agreement with the projections that the town has come up with. Going forward, what we need to avoid and what we need to look after is doing a GID, which is the General Improvement District, which will then saddle future residents of Timnath with more debt. They will have to pay that off. It's somewhat similar to the metro districts, and we need to watch out for that because that is a large chunk of money that people who eventually move into the proposed landings district will have to pay off. I'd like to see us sharpen our pencils a little bit more around that proposal instead of worrying about the financial situation that we have right now with the TDA.
Thank you. Mr. Sukup?
One of the reasons I decided to run for mayor is the financial situation in Timnath. We need to realize what we're doing and how much money we're overspending. Example, Town Center was supposed to come in at $6.3 million. It came in at $8.3. Police station was supposed to come in at $11.3 million. We just were told Tuesday that the police station is going to come in at 13.6, and then they did not add in the land, so it's actually $14.2 million. The continuation of that, right now we are paying interest on loans at 4.99%, way above what is market. And lastly, the town wants to start and build an artesian center. That artesian center is a duplicate of what we have down the road in Loveland, which is a great situation.
Thank you. For our next question, we will begin with Mr. Duffy. Do you feel we should build our own police force or outsource to Larimer County?
I strongly think that we should build our own police force. The reason for that is even if we rely on Larimer County, they're pretty stretched thin. They've got a lot of land that they've got to cover. Their main thing there is Larimer County sheriffs handle a lot of the rural areas. I think we're going to be a much more metropolitan area in the next 10 years, so I think that we should build our own. Most importantly, though, I see the need for a police station, whether we need a $12 million police station or an $8 million police station, I don't know. What I do know is we got to make sure that all current officers and future officers and even administrative staff of our own police force
are paid a wage in which they can live in Timnath. We need that for them. They deserve that pay. I think that we can find that in our budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Grossman-Belisle?
I fully support a 24/7, fully functioning police department that's called Timnath in a police building that will meet our needs for the next 20 years. I want to make a correction on the 11.3 to 13.6. 11.3 million for the building was an early initial preliminary estimate. As we've refined the process over the last 2 years and looked at all of our options for how best to model the police force and the police station, we've come up with more refined numbers using tours, looking at that. All of that information, by the way, is available online on the Timnath website, and I encourage you to look that up because it's very informative of our process. But lastly, I also support the market analysis that we just completed for the police officers to make sure that they have a livable wage for Timnath.
Thank you. For this question, we will begin with Mr. Sukup.
Do I answer the last question?
Did I cut you off?
You did.
I apologize. Please
all right,
go
thank you.
ahead. I'm sorry.
You bet. Thank you. This is a key area of the difference, I think, between me and the other candidates. I'm going to listen. And the key, and I am your representative, it's not what I think should happen, it's what you wish to happen, and I'm going to listen. The town is very loud and very clear. They want their own police force. Great majority said, we want our police force. We do not want the sheriff supervising. We want 24/7 coverage. We want police officers that we can get a hold of immediately. And because of that, that's what I'm going to see gets done. And that's what I will do as your mayor. I will listen to what you have to say and do what you wish to have, not something of which I wish to happen.
Thank you.
Sure.
Now we will begin with you with the next question. Do you think a request for proposal should be made for all major town expenditures?
Every major expenditure in Timnath should have a request for proposal. I'll give you an example of where it wasn't. The town went out for $20 million of debt. It gave it away to Compass Bank. Compass Bank happens to be also, our mayor is an advisory board of director member there. They never went out for a request for proposal. The interest rate's 4.99%. Should have been around 3.5. That amount alone, we could save $1.5 million for the town if we would have gone out for a request for proposal. Also, I understand an international bank had asked to propose the debt at a lower interest rate, and they were told that the town of Timnath, by the mayor, they were told the town of Timnath already has a bank. We need to sit there and look at all the alternatives and make those requests.
Yes, thank you. Mrs. Grossman-Belisle?
Number one, I was never approached by an international bank, and nor would I have ever said that to them. Number two, from an advisory committee perspective, I served as a local advisory committee person. When that was raised as a concern or question, I resigned from that. I never attended another meeting, and I had no financial interest in that whatsoever. However, that's not necessarily true from a conflict of interest perspective with a CPA firm opponent that is running, that has relationships, 30-year relationships with developers and what have you. So there's a real concern about a conflict of interest. As far as the RFP process, we did have our finance director and town manager go out and seek bids and make sure that the rate for Compass Bank was being competitive, and it was. This is not a loan that's simply a personal mortgage and a low interest rate. 4 to 6% was the average within the community. In fact, many banks won't even lend on this type of loan. We got the most competitive rate for our Timnath residents.
Thank you. Mr. Duffy?
I think for all major capital projects as well as the debt issue, yeah, we should continue to have requests for proposals, and we should just vet those through the town council. As far as rates of interest, maybe we could have gotten a little bit better. Whether or not we can get the rates that are published right now, just because interest rates are so low, I don't really see that being of a major issue. I don't think we're going to go out there and make a great financial decisions and push down rates and shop around and have 20 or 30 banks come in and ask us what we're going to pay and get proposals from them. So I think we should just stick with the same process that we have now.
Thank you. For our next question, we will begin with Mr. Sukup. What is your vision or plan for the revitalization of Old Town Timnath as expressed in the community survey?
I will follow whatever the citizens wish on the community survey. We're going to have a new one come out in 2020, and based upon that, that is what I'm going to follow. I would like to interject here. I can present a email from a leading bond officer that he did ask the mayor if he could sit there and make a proposal, and was told that, and I'll quote, "We already have a bank, we do not need you." I have it on an email. Secondly, on that, she went out and got a certificate of participation. What that meant is, instead of a bond, you were not allowed to vote to determine whether you wanted that $20 million debt. It was a certificate of participation, what isn't required under Tabor to get, and it's a workaround in order to not have people vote.
Thank you. Mrs. Grossman-Balillo.
I would like to see the email because I have no clue what he's talking about. But in regards to the certificate of participation, again, it was vetted in a public process. It was brought forward by our finance director and our legal issuance team as a good method for us being able to provide the financing. This was for the Timnath Town Center. It was the most cost-effective way to do it. It will be paid off in 12 years. I certainly take no action individually as it relates to the budget or the resources of the town. I act only as one council member, and on those particular votes, on the $20 million issuance, for example, that was vetted through the town council and approved unanimously 5-0, including Mr. Rick Collins. In regards to the certificate of participation, that was voted 4-0. So again, over 15 people were involved in that process, and I was merely a part of the council as a whole.
Thank you. Mr. Duffy.
Could you repeat the question again?
Yes. What is your vision or plan for the revitalization of Old Town Is that my question?
Yeah, it was.
Yes. Revitalization of Old Town Timnath as expressed in the community survey.
I agree with the revitalization of Old Town Timnath. What I would not want to see, irrespective of the community survey, is to have us subsidize businesses to go in there. In some instances that works. I just think that it kind of turns into the cookie jar where every business that comes to town wants to, kind of have a subsidy or a handout. As far as around Old Town Timnath, I would also like to see, and this is crucial on the rezoning issue over in Timnath Ranch, is when we talk about affordable housing and we talk about housing density, if we are going to do and go ahead with the revitalization of Old Town, we should put the apartments there. We should put the multifamily homes there. They'll be able to access those facilities and that infrastructure that we put in. That's just a logical choice. If we can do that as well, I think we can have a great Old Town.
Thank you very much. For our next question, we will begin again with Mr. Duffy. How concerned are you about clean air for Timnath, and would you be willing to support an air quality monitoring station?
Yes, yes, and yes. First and foremost, I see our air quality is not only a public health issue, but also a safety issue. For those of you who live in Summerfields, just south of Summerfields in unincorporated Larimer County, we have another oil and gas pad that is proposed to be drilled there. We do not have jurisdiction, the town council does not have jurisdiction or approval over that pad. However, we do have the right to be able to monitor the operations over there. That means air quality systems as well as infrared FLIR cameras to look onto that pad site to make sure that the company does what they say. I would like to see us do that all across, especially the eastern side of Timnath, so we can actually see what's coming in. As somebody who works in the energy industry, some people frack well. Some people do it horribly wrong. We, as Timnath and the town council, should be able to identify which people do it right and which people do it wrong.
Thank you. Mr. Sukup.
There's no question that if we should, as a town, the key to the town is to protect its citizens. The key to the town is to make it a safe environment. It comes out number one on every single survey. We as a town council need to be and make sure that we have a safe environment. That environment includes the air we breathe. Therefore, we need to make sure that we monitor it and that it's meeting the standards that we have both nationally and locally. So yes, I do think we should monitor the air. Yes, I think we need to make sure that our citizens are safe.
Thank you. Mrs. Grossman-Belisle.
I agree with my fellow candidates. I do believe that we need to protect our citizens and make sure we do everything we can from an air quality perspective. Many years ago, when we were creating the vision and mission, we used the words clean, green, and serene to identify and describe Timnath, and the clean part definitely means the air as well. In 2015, when we created the Dream Book for the Artisan Village through community input and supported the Old Town, and also confirmed that again in 2018 with the resident survey, one of the questions that came to mind was the Alpine issue at Old Town, and that is a significant concern to our Old Town residents. We actually worked with Alpine and Chins to we're trying to find them an alternate location to move, but in the meantime, we created an air quality monitoring system to be able to do that. We also did that same thing with the proposed oil to the east of us to be able to make sure that we have those monitoring systems in place.
For our next question, we will begin with Mrs. Grossman-Belisle. Where do you stand on big oil and gas coming into the Timnath area?
Wow. Okay. That is a big question. I do believe in property rights. I do believe in the ability for people to be able to access their minerals. However, I also believe in the surface rights of our residents and making sure that those developments are far away from residents in remote locations where possible. We are fortunate right now that we have no regulation or no proposed sites within Timnath proper. We have put in place the most stringent requirements that we can to date, but we are waiting for Larimer County and the state to finalize those regulations so that we can make sure that we have the most stringent requirements around to make sure that we limit the exposure to our surface rights folks and not impact their rights as well.
Thank you. Mr. Duffy.
Big oil, or even small oil for that matter, considering who actually owns the mineral rights, will come into Timnath once oil prices go up. What we need to do is update and finalize our own home rule regulations. Larimer County has approved their regulations, and quite honestly, they're watered down and they do not fit what Timnath needs. Does that mean we're never going to frack in Timnath? No. But we need to make sure that if somebody does come in, that they abide by our updated and finalized rules. We haven't done that. We've continued to say, well, we'll let the state take care of it. We'll wait until the county finalizes their. Well, guess what? They finalize it, and it doesn't go far enough. You cannot rely on the county or the state to protect you. The town council has to do that. If elected, we will have that done by the end of the year.
Thank you. Mr. Sukup.
Again, we need to make sure that our residents are safe. They do not need to be smelling excess fumes that come from an oil rig. And if that is not monitored correctly, that could happen. We need to make sure that there's not a traffic problem with the oil and gas trucks driving up and down the roads. That done, we need to just again, cooperate and convene. That's one of the things that, as a CPA, I have done for 40 years with my company and with my clients, is sit down, get all the constituents together, and come to a fair decision, both for the mineral holder, for the surface right holder, and for the citizen. And that's one of the things I bring as a strength as mayor for your town.
Thank you. Our next question, we will begin with Mrs. Grossman-Billell. What are the plans to handle the increasing traffic?
Planning for and managing our growth is very important, and proactively planning for our infrastructure needs is paramount to our success in being able to stay on top of what those growth needs are and managing that infrastructure. We have done so in a proactive way. We look out 5 years, we look out 10 years, we look out 20 years from a master plan perspective. Again, Timnath is in the nucleus of northern Colorado, and we be strongly impacted by all of the development that's going on, not only in Timnath, but around Timnath. So, for example, we widened Harmony Road faster than anyone did, not just for our residents, to be able to also move commuters through. We're working on the solutions with CDOT to be able to identify or address the needs at Harmony. We've already worked on a solution for Walmart, and that will be fixed by May, as well as the Harmony Bridge. And then lastly, we're working with our partners regionally to make sure that all of our infrastructure needs are met.
Thank you. Mr. Sukup.
It doesn't take anybody who's lived in Timnath very long to understand that the infrastructure around the highway isn't adequate, wasn't designed correctly. The exit out of Walmart is a train wreck, as we all know. We need to sit there and spend time and make sure that we have the best solutions for our traffic, and that we sit there and, again, get our constituents, Windsor and Severance, that are our sister cities, to help get and alleviate some of the traffic that we have on Harmony. Harmony is the only road out of Severance. We need to assist them in trying to develop a prospect or develop up and do a better job on 392, or get other exits out so that we don't have the traffic problem in our town.
Thank you. Mr. Duffy.
If we continue to approve development at the rate that we are, get used to traffic, because there's going to be even more of it, right? We continue to approve large-scale developments inside Timnath that is just going to exacerbate the problem. We don't have any coherent plan around pacing. This goes along with traffic. It goes for our schools. It goes for our regional cooperation. If we continue just to let every developer come in and develop units that are in excess of 1,000 units, we're going to be sitting in traffic all the time. There's really nothing that we can do about it. We're not going to be able to build our way out of it, let alone Timnath's development. But we widen Harmony Road just so people in Severance and Windsor can get over to the highway faster, right? We've got to do something about our own growth rate, and then we can address the traffic problem.
Thank you. Our next round of questions, we will begin with Mr. Duffy. In your opinion, what is the role of open spaces for the future of Timnath?
One of the reasons why my wife and I chose to move here is to have that, rural feel. And I think that we can balance paced development and still have that rural feel. Now, I don't see it as the top priority for a lot of people who are living in metro districts and being taxed and their amenities aren't what they've been promised. But where we have open spaces, we should preserve them. I don't think that we're going to have development so much that we won't have expansive tracts of land, especially on the north side of Timnath, for people to enjoy. We can preserve those, we can go forward with those, and I think that's been in a lot of the plans.
Thank you. Mr. Sukup.
Open space has been loud and clear what our residents want, what you want. And that's one of the things that, as mayor, I'm going to pay attention to. we've got some beautiful tracks along the Poudre River that it'd be nice to preserve. There's 3 or 4 sections that would be awesome. Also, it'd be nice to incorporate a beautiful park and incorporate the history of Timnath with Sweatsville, and can we sit there and create an open space and park right there? There's a number of opportunities we have, none of which have been pursued yet, all of which I will pursue as your mayor.
Thank you. For our next questions, I beg your pardon. I'm trying to skip you.
No problem.
Go right ahead.
Okay. We absolutely think about the balance all the time of maintaining the rural charm that Timnath calls special, but also having good managed growth. If you look on the website, you'll see that we just recently, after a year of vetting through the community, updated our comprehensive plan, and it does take into account that balance of finding places where we can keep those open spaces, whether it be along Poudre River or what have you, special places, but we also require our developers to have open space in the green belts and larger setbacks than some of our other communities do. I think I want to go back just for 1 second, though, because when we talk about that development, we've got Windsor and Severance that have a higher growth rate than we do. We've got 4,000 units across the highway in Fort Collins, and Harmony Gateway that will have another 2,000. So we have to not only protect our community, but we have to work with them, and we have to make sure that we're preserving it from a regional perspective.
Thank you. This question we will begin with Mr. Sukup. If the U.S. enters a recession in the next 12 months and tax revenue decreases, what portion of the town budget would be decreased to offset the decreased revenue?
In 60 seconds or less.
In 60 seconds or less.
Well, I can definitely talk on the national economy in 60 seconds. One of the concerns I have, and reason why I'm running for mayor, is how thin we have. We've got a debt load of $73 million, which works out to $73,000 per individual family in Timnath. If we do not get the revenues that we need from Costco and we don't get the revenues from Walmart, what will happen is we will run into problems. And my concern is we're so reliant on their revenues. If we hit a recession, we can have a problem. One of the reasons I'm running is to try to make it so that problem doesn't get even multiplied and exponentially increased.
Thank you. Mrs. Grossman-Belisle.
Our property taxes fully suffice to take care of our debt service and only represent 28% of their usage. Our sales tax from Costco is all extra additional revenue that we get to enjoy and will continue to do so for many years to come. If there is a major recession today, we've also prepared our financial budget to be able to sustain that with healthy reserves, and we actually have in place to be able to do some worst case forecasting, and we will be able to continue our budget the way it is right now without increasing taxes and using those property taxes to pay for that. In 2008, during that recession, we only saw a 3% decrease in values with our property homes, and again, that takes care of all of our debt. And so even if we have a recession similar to 2008, our property values would have to drop far more significantly than 3% to even have an impact on us.
Thank you. Mr. Duffy.
I think that if we're facing a recession, a recession isn't going to choke off all revenue from the Costco or the Walmart. It's not going to choke off all revenue from property taxes either. So we will still have revenue streams coming into the coffers. To go back to a point that I've been trying to make all night, we're actually paying a lot more to the metro districts. So if we see a recession and people start losing their jobs in Timnath, the biggest thing that we're going to have to be worried about is paying the 50 mills to our metro districts and having people lose their homes because of that, not because of any kind of impasse financially here at the town level. The town level, and I mean, I think on my taxes, it was maybe 6%, whereas my mill levy going to the metro districts was well over 30%. So if we do face a recession, we're going to have problems more in our metro districts than we are at the town council level.
Thank you. Our next question will begin with Mr. Sukup. With the new high school coming at Prospect and Main Street, what are your plans for traffic and its control?
You know what? That's way above my pay grade. I am not a traffic engineer. I do not pretend to be. One of the things that I'm good at is when I walk into a room, I know I'm not the smartest person there. But what I am very good at is finding the smartest person there and having them give me the answer. And that's what I will do as far as that question goes, is find people who are experts at traffic control, that are experts at engineering, and ask them to help the town and lead us through that.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Grossman-Belisle.
I too rely on our experts, but we've also worked collaboratively with Fort Collins and entered into an agreement to work together to make sure the Prospect Bridge over I-25 is completed. The roads are widened. We already have a plan in place for the Main Street, as we've done a traffic study prior to the high school being built, and that will all be in place as part of the traffic impact will be all addressed by the time the high school goes live. It's very critically important that we anticipate those and act proactively to make sure those are not something that we're reacting to after the fact when the problem exists. And it again requires us to work collaboratively for both Timnath residents' needs, but also the school needs and also Fort Collins to make sure that it's all moving as effectively as possible. We also have budgeted for Prospect improvements to the east to clear up Dead Man's Curve and on the way over to the east to mitigate that traffic as well.
Thank you. Mr. Duffy.
As we move towards 24/7 policing, one of the things that I would like to see our police force take on is having a patrol car for safety and security around the high school. I worked extensively on ballot initiative 4A, which was to increase teacher pay. Luckily, that ballot initiative passed district-wide in the Poudre school system. 20% of that money is allocated for mental health and safety. We can tap into that money and work with the school district. I've been endorsed by 4 of the 7 members on the Poudre Valley School District for my outreach with them. We can tap into that money to help make sure that the traffic flows and that, quite honestly, kids don't drive so stupidly. I have kids. They don't drive yet, though.
Our next round of questions will begin with Mr. Duffy. How do you foresee the relationship between the sheriff's office and the police department?
Well, right now, we have a pretty decent relationship with the Larimer County Sheriff's Office. That will continue. I don't see us moving towards 24-hour policing and then having a very big dust-up with the county Sheriff's Office. We will rely on them for some things, even though we will have a police station here that will do a lot. We will rely on them for the new mental health facility. So if we do have incidences that require an arrest and mental health treatment, they will be transferred over there. We will rely and still have good relationships with Fort Collins Police as well as the Larimer County Sheriff's Department.
Thank you. Mr. Sukup.
It'll be crucial that the police department and the sheriff's department work in unison. They will need to do that. We can get 24/7 with our police department. We can have excellent officers. I've talked to them. They're excellent people. They've done a great job. They'll continue to do a great job because they'll bring in people that are like-minded. The relationship with the sheriff's office should still be strong. We will need them. There will be situations where we need backup for our police group, and I'm sure the sheriff's department will back us up as we will assist them if they need backup.
Thank you. I have you all.
No.
No, I don't. I skip
keep
you
trying to
again.
forget
I
me.
beg your pardon, Mrs. Grossman-Belisle.
We do have an excellent relationship with Larimer Sheriffs. They have provided 24/7 coverage for us, and as well as dispatch, as well as booking, and again, a mutual aid. And we will continue the dispatch piece, and we will continue to use them as a booking facility even when we move to 24/7 in 2021. However, one of the things that whole mutual aid, we have excellent relationships with all of the police departments around. So whether it's Severance, Windsor, Fort Collins, Loveland, and Larimer County, they all work very closely together to make sure that they support one another, and it's an excellent working relationships. Additionally, though, interim Chief Police Terry Jones has brought an incredible amount of credibility to Timnath, and we are so happy and fortunate to have him here, and he has really brought some leadership to that entire group, and we will continue to see that and improve.
Thank you. And Mrs. Grossman-Belisle, I will begin with you this time, to be sure I don't miss you. What is your position on personal watercraft on Timnath Lake?
Several years ago, when we made the initial improvements to Timnath Reservoir, we did community outreach, which included not only a survey online, we mailed out information to gather up feedback in written form. We had community process through outreach at events. We also had held public open houses. What that revealed to us with over 400 responses was that everybody had a little bit different vision of what Timnath Reservoir should be for their recreational use, but they all enjoyed the amenity. And what we tried to craft with that, and again through public process, and again through community involvement, was to create a balance of allowing for personal watercraft, but also maintaining the natural elements to the north, also maintaining some elements for recreation that all can enjoy and none impacts the other negatively.
Thank you. Mr. Sukup.
The question on whether we have personal watercraft on the lake or not is really a key of, again, we ask the citizens, what do you want? What do you want us to do? We as a town need to do what the residents want. If the residents want personal watercraft on that, we need to figure out a way to get it done. If they don't, then we need to figure a way to monitor it so that it doesn't happen. But it's crucial that we sit there and, again, listen to the representative. Myself as a representative of the town needs to follow through with what the town wishes to have happen, and that's what I plan on doing.
Thank you. Let's see.
Yes. Would you like me to respond
Mr.
about personal
Duffy.
watercraft? I don't
Mr.
own one,
Duffy.
so I don't really know much about it. I have no problem. We've enjoyed the reservoir out there. I wouldn't really want to have drag races out there with speedboats or whatnot and ruining everybody who lives around the lake, but we can find a good balance. What I would say is of much more importance is for the residents in Wild Wing there and everybody in town is let's finish up the trail system out there so people can actually ride their bike around it. If people want to have personal watercraft out there, I think that's okay.
Thank you very much. Did we have any other questions we needed to ask? Thank you. Okay, we will begin with Mrs. Grossman-Belisle. What are your plans to bring more business to the town?
One clarification on the previous question. If the personal watercraft was suggesting jet skis, I'm adamantly against those for safety reasons as well as Wild Wing preserving our natural elements. Moving on to Timnath business, I led and attracted Costco. I was involved in Starbucks and Chick-fil-A. I work to bring local businesses here as well, and I'm very involved in the economic development activities because once we have rooftops, that drives commercial growth, and commercial growth brings us revenue and sustainability to become a full Timnath and not reliant on going to Fort Collins or Windsor for our dining and as grocery store and those types of things. So I will continue to do that regularly. I attend the annual retail conference and basically speed dating for commercial development, but it's an opportunity to tell them about Timnath and why they need to look at this. And that's going to result in learning experience coming here to serve as a daycare as well. So I'm fully supportive.
Mr. Duffy.
Well, as I mentioned previously on the question about developing Old Town, attracting business is great. I think that's fine. I'd like to see that revenue stream come in. However, I don't want to see us start to do what other towns like Loveland has done, where they subsidize business to come in and they never really make their money back. We really have to be doing a better job. And we give, you can see in the budget, we do give quite a lot of money. I think it was maybe $1.8 million in 2018 in developer incentives. Those things we've got to watch out for because it's always another dollar, another dollar, another dollar. And before you know it, the town doesn't recuperate that in the revenue streams that they get from the businesses that they attract. If you want to come to Timnath, we've got the people. Just come here and grow organically. We don't need to give you a handout.
Mr. Sukup.
I would love to have a grocery store here. I would love to have some more restaurants here. But let's be pragmatic and understand that we need more rooftops before we ever do that. And so to try to create something that won't happen, all we have to do is look at Centerra, which was subsidized by Loveland with a bunch of empty holes in it. We look at Foothills Fashion Mall and look at the subsidy that was there that has now been a disaster for Fort Collins. We do not need to subsidize business to come into Timnath anymore. We're done with that. It's the end of it. If they can come, that'd be great. And we will sit there and make room for a grocery store. We'll make room for a nice restaurant, but we do not need to go subsidize them. That's good.
That's good. That's good. Thank you very much. We're almost out of time, and so now we need to move to the 60 seconds in which each candidate will have time to give their closing statement. And we will begin with Mr. Duffy.
Thank you. First and foremost, thanks to everybody for coming here this evening. One of the things that I'd like to reiterate to everybody is please vote. Please get your neighbors to vote. One of the things that always happens is municipal elections usually only get about 30% voter turnout. I may not be your cup of tea. That's totally fine. But please make sure that you vote. It's really important. Also, please vote everybody on the ballot. So don't only vote in the mayor's race because the council races are just as important. One of the things that distinguishes me here amongst my other candidates is, number one, I live in a metro district. If you live in a metro district, we're in the same boat. All right, so we feel the same pain. Secondly, when we think about our school system, I'm the only one on this stage who's got kids in the school system. As I said, I've been endorsed by 4 of the 7 Poudre Valley School District board members, and I know what's going to happen at those schools because I'll feel it myself. Thank you very much for your time and attention. My name's Connor Duffy, and I'm running for mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Sukup.
First, I'd like to thank everybody for inviting me into their homes. I learned so much from all of the great people in Timnath about what they wanted and what they were reaching out. I reached out and listened to you and listened to what you wanted this town to be, and I think I have a good understanding of that. The Timnath has some incredibly kind and nice people, and it was so much fun to sit there and meet them during this campaign. It's been fun for me to do, and totally made me more passionate about wanting to help the town and be your mayor. So I hope you would vote for me, Mark Sukup.
Thank you. Mrs. Grossman-Belisle.
I believe my track record over this past decade speaks for itself, and all of our many accomplishments that together we have brought to fruition. I want one more term because I want to bring some additional projects to fruition, like the police building and the 24/7 coverage and the Timnath Parkway that was promised to Old Town residents many years ago. Those are just a few quick examples of what we still have left to do. And I want to keep moving Timnath forward, and I want to also have one more term so that I can prepare our future leaders so that when it is time for me to to finish my term and I turn to pass the torch, I've got experience there that can continue the momentum and keep Timnath moving to the next level. I hope you will vote for me. I want your support and your vote. I appreciate your time this evening and your time also talking with me through the past weeks, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This concludes our forum for the mayor. Please join me in showing our gratitude to all the candidates for their willingness to serve.